the whole your pain is your purpose, the mess in the message, or your mess is your message kind of thing, and to help the person you used to be. And so to me, there is no failure because God allowed that situation to help you because He loves you so much.
Ray, welcome to Point of Impact. I'm glad to have you here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So I love the message you've got. You've got an incredible story, and I want to get into all of it. But I think maybe we start with Ray from about maybe 20 or so years ago. Yeah, mid 2000s, and is a different Ray. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, in 2005, I left my last job. I worked for an insurance company, and I left that job to focus on being a full-time real estate investor, which went well for a few years. And then when the market crashed, I got wiped out. And so I lost everything. I was $1 million in debt, foreclosure, divorced, depressed, and didn't really know what I was going to do. And so while I was in this, just depressive funk, I went to a 3-day event. And in that event, I was hoping to learn how to make money. But what I really got out of it was that I had repair relationship with my dad on a to-do list with no priority. I hadn't talked to him in 13 years. He had never seen his grandsons, who were 9 and 10 at the time. And so I called him on day 2 of that event. And eventually in July of 2009, went up to Indiana and we created something out of nothing. And so I forgave him. That very next week, I find or I get introduced, I should say, to a network marketing company that I would go on to become the number 1 income earner of. And, between that and building out a company around coaching people, went on to make tens of millions of dollars, generated over $30 million in online commissions and network marketing commissions. And by the end of 2019, I had hit a lot of the goals that I had gone from foreclosure to, millions of dollars. But I knew something was missing. And so I went on a very different journey and starting in 2020, tried a lot of different therapy because I grew up in a very abusive home, tried hypnosis. I did 2 years of 1 to 3 hours a day of meditation. And all of that stuff was helpful, but it wasn't it. And it was 19 months ago that I found what was actually missing, and that was God. I didn't grow up in the church. I didn't know one verse. I had Googled John 3:16 when I saw it on Tim Tebow, but it didn't make sense to me. And in November of 2022 is when I came to Christ and accepted Christ, and that has created a very, very different life for me. One of much, much deeper meaning, purpose, and fulfillment. I'm no longer looking for that thing that I knew something was missing. I found it, and so now I'm telling other people about it.
Well, that's pretty incredible. During the housing crash, I had a very similar experience. Only I was only in debt half as much as you.
Yeah.
So I was in the military. I was in the Navy at the time, and just a petty officer, E5, very small, very low wages for having $500,000 worth of debt and no equity behind it. And also went through a divorce. That was one of those deployment marriages. Married just before deploying, and she got the best part of the whole fix and flip thing. She ran off with a contractor, so she actually did end up with something through the whole deal. But I came out of it with quite a lot of debt, and it took a long time to get out from under that. So it was a tough time for a lot of people. So I can definitely sympathize there. But you're You're a grinder. You're a charger. You. How did you start rebuilding? Like you say you went to a seminar. Uh, what was that about? What was this seminar? What could it have been anything, or was it more fortuitous that it was a particular seminar?
Yeah, no, I'm very grateful to it. The seminar was landmark. It's called the Forum, and so I think they're landmark education, and it's their first workshop, seminar called the Forum. And so, in it, it just really challenges you and your identity of who you think you are, and I really needed that. I think what it did was it nudged me to repair my relationship with my dad, and that kind of got rid of that identity of despair and depression and everything, and snapped me back into how I had been, because I'd always been motivated. I'd always been a go-getter. Um, but that the forgiving of my dad and connecting with him, and since then, just a few months ago, I actually brought my dad to Christ, which was super cool. And yeah, so I think you asked, could it have been anything? Um, I think, a retrospective that was taught in there had me connect with the idea of forgiving my dad. And so I needed that. It wasn't necessarily the tactics that were taught, although I think they're, fine and good. But it was that, just really looking at what's important in my life, and that, you don't have forever to do those things. And that's what made me reconnect with my dad.
So you between you pre-faith and post-faith, you didn't really change the tactics. It was simply bringing God into your life, or
Yeah.
were there other changes you employed?
Yeah. So I think the best way to describe that is upstairs permission leads to bold downstairs action. And so I met, I heard David Green, the founder of Hobby Lobby, talk about this, and I got a chance to meet him a couple months ago and spend some time with him, and talked with him, had some conversations. And this is a guy that he uh, he dreamed as a kid to be a dime store manager, and because that would have made him the most successful guy in his family. But instead, he starts Hobby Lobby, which has 45,000 employees, 1,000 stores, does 8 billion a year, and he gives 50% of profits to charity every year. And so this year they expect he'll give around 750 million. And so I heard him say, "My life changed when I started praying on every major and minor decision." And so I thought, I'm going to do that too. And so for me, Christ was an exchange, not an addition. And so there is no part of my life that doesn't have prayer in it, faith in it. When I do my one-on-one with clients, we get into prayer. I pray for them and I pray about them on, how can I help them with some of the decisions they're facing, or how can I help them with what they're battling, or what relationships they're struggling with. And so there really is no part of my life that isn't faith based. It's not a Sunday visit for me. I'm in the Word every single day, and I do that because I want to. I don't do it out of begrudgingly, oh man, I better do this or God's going to be mad. I do it because I love it, and I believe that salvation is one category. It's very straightforward. But the other category is meaning, purpose, and fulfillment. And the more obedient you are, to what you're getting nudged to do, and the more that you're seeking His presence in all areas of your life, the deeper your meaning, purpose, and fulfillment. And so, what I meant by upstairs permission leads to bold action downstairs is when I pray on different decisions, what projects to be involved in, what events to attend, who to work with. and I get these answers in prayer. I move forward boldly, even when they don't make sense, and there's been a lot of those, and it's been just really powerful. So there really is zero part of my life, whether it's my family, whether it's my business, whether it's my relationship with my wife, whether it's my relationship with my other family members or friends. There's really no area of my life that hasn't been affected by faith.
So it went from the pursuit of money or success in general to more of a faith based um, fulfillment life.
I mean, I always, I never was great at setting money goals. I never was great at saying, okay, I want to make this. I would do it because coaches would nudge me to do that and kind of push me to do that. I was just wanting to make a bigger difference. I wanted to make a bigger impact. I wanted to bring more hope to people.
Hmm.
And so that naturally leads to more money. And so, how do I get more people to see my videos? And those videos will give them hope and help them. And so I've always more been wired that way. Um, and so the difference now is before I was teaching self-development and personal development, which is very hard. If you're not co-laboring with Christ, if you're not yoked with the creator of the heavens and the earth, then self-development, personal development is pretty tough. And you trying to, if it's going to be, it's up to me, and hustle and grind and all that. That's tough. And it also all self and personal development ends in a brick wall. Eventually you learn this stuff and you do this stuff, and then you're like, is this it? Is this all there is? And I remember seeing a 60 Minutes interview with an NFL player, and this guy had just won his third Super Bowl, and so obviously pretty successful. And the guy says to him, he goes, "Man, you must be feeling great." And the football player says, he goes, "Well, most days I wonder, is this it?" And he said, "I just always feel like I'm missing something." And the guy says, "Well, what do you think you're missing?" He goes, "I wish I knew." And that football player was Tom Brady. Now he went on to win more Super Bowls and marry and divorce a supermodel and all that stuff. But I know what was missing, and I know having we are hardwired to crave a connection with our Heavenly Father,
Hmm.
and we try to fill it with everything else. We try to fill it with money, success, influence, impact, sex, drugs, whatever. We try to fill it with everything but His presence, and that's why we always come up lacking. That's why we always find that, oh man, I thought this thing would make me feel better about myself, but it didn't, because that wasn't the answer. And the answer is just surrendering to God and inviting Him into your heart.
I think and you can tell me how you feel about it. There's a common misconception about that relationship between having a faithful, generous, abundant life, uh, one of giving, and the pursuit of monetary wealth. And a lot of people argue that Jesus lived a life of poverty and is not rich, and the money is the root of all evil type of thing. How do you feel on that topic?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter how I feel, fortunately, we have the Word of God, and we can turn to the Bible and learn, right? So, as early as Deuteronomy 8:18 says, "Remember the Lord your God who gives you the power to get wealth." And so I don't think something would be edified in that manner if in and of itself it was terrible, right? And so Ecclesiastes 9:16 says, "The poor man's wisdom is despised; his words are not heard." I also don't think it would de-edify something unless there was some kind of importance there. Luke 16:9 says, "Use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourself, so that when it is gone, you'll be welcomed into eternal dwellings." And so, and like you said, it is the love of money is the root of all evil. And most people do love money, whether they have it or not. And so if your emotions vary based on how much money is in the bank, and they vary greatly and strongly, then you have a love of money. You do. If you get your significance, status, identity, safety, security from how much money you got, then you are worshiping money. And I know you don't get down on your knees to a Benjamin Franklin or something like that, but Jesus told us, he goes, you can't serve God and money. You'll either love the one and despise the other. And so you just got to recognize the difference. The difference is God is source. Money is a resource. So we're to treat it like that. And we're to treat it as a gift from God. So we're to steward it well. And there's a lot of scriptures that instructs us on how to do that, right? And so there's no issue with having or not having money. It is, are you worshiping it? Is it your source? Do you rely everything around it? Would you bend the rules to get it? How often do you think about it? Is it the first thing that you think about when you wake up? And most people, that's the case. And so, I have God as my source. He is my priority. He's my number one. I want to be a good steward of the money he brings me, and be generous with it, not be addicted to it. Maybe most importantly, being obedient to it. And so, I get sent several charities daily, and I pray on it. And if I'm to give to them, and I get a yes in prayer, I give. It's not my money. I'm just a steward. I'm like the UPS driver delivering packages, and he just happens to deliver packages to me because I'm out there solving problems and adding value and trying to help others and give more hope to people. And so he delivers a lot of packages, and we deliver a lot of packages out.
Yeah, everybody wants to do good, but and you can do good work without money, but it's really hard when you're broke. You're just working to survive rather than being successful, wealthy, and having that time freedom to and money freedom to be able to do more good work. So I think it's a misconception.
Yeah. Well, there's scripture. It's 2 Corinthians 9, 6 through 13 that breaks a lot of money management down. And it says, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Each of you should give what you've decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. And God is able to bless you abundantly, so that in all things, at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. And I'll tell you, there was a time where, because of a COVID contract that got moved, I was hit with a $1 million bill for an event, and it was much more than I had.
Well,
I had the ability to pay.
Oh, I was just thinking as you were saying that the I don't think there's a question the Bible doesn't have an answer for,
I I agree.
except for maybe a good stir fry recipe. And then for that you go to ChatGPT now.
That's
But
right.
otherwise, if you have a question about life, it's probably been addressed, somewhere in the Bible. Would it go
I
back
agree.
to when you reconnected with your dad, and what kind of change that made? And I know uh, you went from uh, network marketing, you and sales, to speaking and coaching and teaching others how to do that. Uh, and one of the lessons I was reading, one of the lessons was don't be afraid to go there, and show that vulnerability. What do you think it is about uh, showing our necks, so to speak, to others that helps connect. And what was that? What's that story for you?
Yeah, the first time I was ever vulnerable did have to do, with my dad, and I was speaking. I was speaking at an event in Myrtle Beach, and this is the first time I can recall that I really felt this nudge that wasn't from me, and it just wasn't, because I didn't want to do it. And a lot of times that's when it's a nudge from God, is you don't want to do it. You wouldn't have had that idea. And so I'm up in Myrtle Beach, and I just finished an opportunity meeting, and now I'm about to do a training, and I got nudged, talk about your dad. And I had never talked about my dad. In fact, I had never been vulnerable. All that I would talk about is how awesome I was and what my results were, how much money I'd made, and all that stuff. Very insecure. And that's how insecure people show up typically. And so I got this nudge, talk about your dad. And so I share for the first time ever to anybody how, I repaired, a relationship with him, forgave him after not seeing him for 13 years. And I really believe that when you let go of your past, you can step into a new future. And I really believe that. And that's also, biblical. Well, I didn't expect what would happen next. And that is Kenneth, the guy that booked me to come and speak, that asked me to come up to Myrtle Beach. After I share that story, he comes walking down the aisle, just tears, he's just weeping. He's shaking. And he says to me, he goes, "I can't believe you just shared that story. I haven't seen my dad in 17 years. And tomorrow I fly out for his funeral." And so, like that, I was really like taken aback by that. And I thought, back then, wow, what a coincidence. I get nudged to talk about my dad. And then, and what I've learned is, God, Hebrew is God's language, and there's no word in Hebrew for the word coincidence, because there is no coincidence. And so God wanted me to share that story so that it stuck with me, and I would share it more often. And since then, I've had hundreds of people forgive their mom, dad, sister, brother, son, daughter. 3 times someone heard my story about my dad, forgave their dad, and then their dad died. So they literally had to have heard my story in a certain window, or they would have missed the chance. And so, I truly believe you being vulnerable, and that changed me. I had never been vulnerable before then. And I realized how much people needed authenticity and vulnerability. And so from that day forward, and that was in 2010, I've just said, I'm just going to be as vulnerable as I possibly can.
Mm-hmm. That's that was shoot from the hip type of stuff, that unpracticed.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I didn't have it. There was nothing, I never told it, and I didn't plan on telling it. So I just told the story. It wasn't a PowerPoint or something like that. I just told what happened.
Practicing your new material on your crowd. But it certainly worked. And it's true. I went through that same process myself after being injured. And a soldier, bomb technician, the hurt locker guy. We're tough, we're arrogant, and infallible. There's no vulnerability. So when first times I was invited to speak, I was just talking about winning. And you could tell, even though I couldn't see the crowd, I could feel that I wasn't connecting. Like it just wasn't working. And without the vulnerability part, you're you're not connecting. You're not empathizing with. You're not giving. You're not humanizing yourself. You're just making yourself out to be a superhero.
Yes. Yeah. Pain is a connector. And so most people want to know that you have some kind of idea of what pain they've been through or what pain they're currently in. And this is why, like, if I talk to someone who, unfortunately, I know a few people that have, lost a child. And, when I talk to them, I know I can only help them so much because I haven't lost a child. And in their head, at some point, they're going to think, you don't know what it's like. And so what I do is I push them to the Ed Milet Granger Smith podcast, where Granger shares the story of losing his son and him almost killing himself. And that's something that can help them. And so this is why it's so important to help the person you used to be. It's so important to take whatever God has delivered you from, rescued you from, had you survive, and share that story so you give hope to others.
It's like offering an olive branch, hand up. Everybody in that audience wants to connect.
Yes.
So
Amen.
they want you, they want to see themselves in your story. So
Absolutely.
you got to connect with them on that emotional level. So that's, I mean, for me, it was uh, sharing, those moments of pain, of feeling alone, helplessness, because we've all felt that difficulty at one point. And once you connect there, then it's like, come on, now I'm going to show you how we get out of here.
Amen.
And
Well said.
that, what's that?
I said, Amen. Well said.
Yeah, then you can go on that the rest of that story together, right? You can bring them back up. Uh, so I've listened to a few of your speaking engagements, and you're got a great podcast. Uh, Tell me a little bit more about the transition from from you being the network marketer to being the educator.
Yeah. So I didn't plan on getting out of network marketing. But what started happening is because I was one of the early people to build on social media. So, I built on social media in 2009. And back then, hardly anyone in network marketing was doing that. In fact, they bashed it. They thought wouldn't duplicate, it was too complex and technical. And so really no one was doing it. But as people caught on and they saw that I created success with it, um, here I was, the number one incomer of this company, but all of these other companies are hiring me. And they're like, hey, can you come teach our people? And I'm like, okay, sure. So I didn't. And then I had two or three different companies that asked me if I would create a course that they would then sell and give me a cut. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds great, because I didn't know how to create a course. And so I created a course for a few people, magnetic sponsoring, My Lead System Pro, and they started selling it and started paying me when they sold it, which was pretty sweet. And so fast forward to 2016, I'm making I've made millions in network marketing. I'm now making millions in coaching and training at the same time, and so it's kind of cool, right? But I am, the way God wired me is very I am happiest when I'm super focused. And I realized that I wasn't given 100% to either. And I didn't like that. And so I looked at, okay, where do I think I can make a bigger difference? And I felt I could as as a coach, as a speaker, and working with all different companies. And so I retired from actively building in 2016, and and focused on that. And you know, I really missed it. I missed being in the grind. I missed being with my people, being in the foxhole, use your language maybe. And so I started a group called Rank Makers, a membership group. And, so that way I could, hear about their wins, hear about their rank advances and things like that. And so we started that in 2017. We have about 9,000 people in there right now. And, they pay a monthly fee, and I do a live in there Monday through Friday, a short one, 5 to 8 minutes. And so, yeah, it was it was an interesting, transition. I missed a lot of the network marketing perks of, paid trips and incentives and, having fun promos and things like that. But I was also able to get in and help companies that otherwise would not have hired me if I was still actively building. So it was a trade off.
Mm-hmm. And are you enjoying it more? Is it like feel like the right choice?
It does, no doubt, no doubt. And I do have companies that I have a corporate role with a company right now. I'm helping them with their growth, so helping them with their presentations and funnels and sales and scripts. I right now I don't know exactly how many, but I'm probably consulting 5 different companies, and then I have my own customers and clients. And so yeah, I do think I made the right choice.
Well, tell me about network marketing. Now, what are some of the most common challenges, mistakes? What are, where do they run into most of their problems?
Sure. So I see network marketing as the lowest risk, lowest overhead way for the average ordinary person to start a business.
Hmm.
And this is something that you don't have to come up with some big idea, right? You're selling someone else's big idea, and you don't have to have a shopping cart or a merchant account or websites. You don't have to have a lot of the stuff that most people do. You're just referring people to an existing product, and you get compensated on it. And there's leverage there where so I remember someone asked me, they said, well, how much did you make your first month? And they were kind of, snarky about it. And I said, well, honestly, I don't know. And, and they're like, oh, okay. And I said, well, because there are people I introduced to it 7 years ago that I'm still being compensated on. And so I don't know, is it hundreds of thousands of dollars? Is it millions? I don't know actually, because again, there are people I brought in 7 years ago I'm still being paid on. And, and so it's something that is just a very leveraged way to do it. The two biggest faults are because it's so low risk, low overhead, anyone can do it. And so anyone can jump into it and make any promises they want, and tell people how easy it is and how they don't have to sell anything and just make up baloney. And so if it with a franchise, you don't get a lot of hype. Like I bought a 47. I dropped $47,000 on a advertising franchise. It didn't work out, so that kind of sucked, right? But like with a franchise, you're not being hyped up because it's such a large investment that they assume you're serious. Well, if someone can join a business for $100 or a couple $100, then a lot of non-serious people can go there and be duped by other people that are making stuff up, right? And so the low risk is one of its greatest benefits and also one of its greatest harms. The second thing is just there are over the years, because of that first factor, there are a lot of people out there that are jaded against it. They were told you don't have to sell anything, you're going to make millions of dollars or whatever, and they believed it. And which is you could argue is not the brightest on their part, but because so many people believed the different deceptive things that are said about network marketing, and how easy it is or whatever, it got a bad rap. And so if you're wanting to build, you are going to face some social challenges of people saying, "Oh, that's one of those pyramid schemes," or "Oh, that's this or that." I have clients that I have one client that he's legitimately made $250,000 a month for 18 years, and that's passive. He does not work super hard. He's not working 1 million hours a week. He built a humongous team in Europe, Asia, and the United States. And there are a lot of stories like that people just don't know, because what they hear is all the yokels that jumped in and didn't work very hard and didn't work for them. And so they're angry about it. And so you have to be tough. You got to be tougher in network marketing than most other sales, because if you start selling cars, people may not respect it, but they won't make fun of it. They won't say, "Oh, it's a scam." They won't say that stuff. So you got to be a little mentally tougher to be in network marketing and succeed than other types of sales. But there's just more leverage, and it's lower risk and overhead, and you actually do build a business. I sold my business. I sold my line of business just like someone would an insurance company or something. And that's just something you don't get in other sales careers. Usually you don't own anything, and you also don't get paid any residual either. And so there's a lot of benefits to network marketing. It's not a fit for everyone. If image is your number one thing, then network marketing is probably not going to work out.
Is it a challenge for some to wear that dual role, the dual hat of sales and recruiter? So, because for network marketing, I'm imagining you've got to sell whatever that product is, and you've also got to recruit, and educate and lead teams. So,
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, you nailed it of, the more dual hat is sales and leadership, right? And there's a lot of people that, maybe aren't great at either or one or the other. Um, and there are people that focus on customers and make tons of money. I mean, I know people that make $50,000, $60,000 a month, all from customers, and they're not huge recruiters. Do I agree with that? Hey, if you're able to make that kind of money, then why not tell other people about it? So, like I'm a fan of recruiting. Um, Leadership is another thing because you can get lucky in network marketing, and that's not to, hopefully not to be expected, but you can. I've seen it. I've seen it where people have come in, they brought in a few people, and they just so happen to bring in the right kind of people, and they explode. And pretty soon, they're at $100,000 a year, which is way above their wisdom. And so now they have this team, that they had a part in, but someone else recruited the majority of them or whatever, and they're in this positional leadership of I'm your upline. You need to listen to me, and that's where a lot of times you'll have an upline that just isn't equitable to how much they're making because they haven't grown themselves enough, and that's very rare. That's rare in other careers, I think, right? And yeah, there's nepotism, like in corporate America where the son is in the boss chair and didn't earn it or whatever. But it's rare. It's rare. Other than that example where someone just becomes the head of a large organization and they completely don't know what they're doing. But that happens all the time in network marketing because they happen to bring in one guy, they brought in another guy, that brought in 10,000 people. And so I've seen that quite a few times.
yeah, going back to my college days, yeah, one summer I sold books door to door. Uh, and one of the toughest things for me to get over was that fear of rejection. But that's pretty common, right? Do you have a different perspective on hearing no?
Yeah. So, I actually wrote, I co-authored a book called Go for No for Network Marketing. And Go for No helps you reduce your resistance to rejection and your reaction to rejection. So the game plan that I had that helped me become the number one earner of that company is I went for 20 no's a day because you can control your no's, meaning I can go get 20 no's. You tell me any product to sell, I can go get 20 no's by hustling, by working hard, by reaching out to people. If you told me to get two yeses, I can't do that. I can't guarantee two yeses. I mean, maybe I'm just off that day and I talk to 100 people and they all say no. And so when you go for no, you realize it's just not that big a deal. And so the perfect protocol is the waiter or waitress. Last night I took my oldest son and his fiance out. Went to this nice seafood place, had all kinds of good stuff, right? And at the end, the waitress comes around and she says, hey, do you want to see the dessert menu? And I said, no, thanks, I'm good. And she didn't scream in agony. She didn't break dishes in the back. She didn't ask God if she was not meant to be a waitress. She just said, okay, here's your check. And so going for no is much more like that. And so I would reach out to people and say, hey, would you be able to take a look at what I'm doing to make some extra money? And if not, totally cool. And if they said no, I'd say, cool, man. Do you know anyone that does want to make some extra money? Not a big deal. And so I just didn't. Not only did I not care if I got no's, I actually collected them, right? So I had to get, before my head hit the pillow, I had to have 20 no's every single day. And it was 7 months in that way of operating made me the number one earner of that company. And I don't know, cause I don't hear every testimonial, right? But I've heard 3 testimonials of people that also went for 20 no's. All 3 became $1 million earners in their company. And there may be others out there, but they haven't told me, but there's at least 3 that have told me.
I just thinking back to those door knocking days. It's bringing up trauma.
I mean,
But
I knocked on some doors too. I mean, when I was 19, I was selling long distance, which most people don't remember what that is. And I made 450 calls a day. And about 30% of the time, I was cursed out. Stop effing calling me. I hate you. And so yeah, you don't. Fortunately, today we have social media, right? So you can sit behind your keyboard and do it. You don't actually have to leave your house. But yeah, it is a numbers game, and you're looking for who's open to learning more. You're not trying to close everybody, or else you'll be very, very stressed out.
I tell you what, though, the education there was invaluable.
Oh yeah,
From
yeah.
the perspective from changing it, they go for no, and literally, I think we were even trained that on average you're going to hear so many no's before you get to the yes. So it was like me just chalking off all the no's because I knew once I hit so many, there's bound to be a yes in there. So, and when somebody told me no, it was like, thank you very much. I collected. And of course, I like to brag. At the beginning of the summer, it was knocking on a door and saying hi. I have some books to sell. Would you like to take a look at them? By the end of the summer, it was, you're about to buy some books. Would you like to look at them first?
Nice.
Of course, by then the summer was over and I'd made almost nothing.
Oh man.
But what I did get was sales university, right? Resilience education.
Amen.
And even one day, I got some really delicious tamales from a church group.
Oh, nice.
So that was fantastic. I mean, it was a great summer. Anyways, the dovetails with dealing with failure and what we have to learn from it. Can you expand a little bit on how you imagine or how you picture failure?
So, I mean, I have a very different perspective on it now than I did prior to, coming to faith. And, and there's different, scripture out there, right? Proverbs 3, 4, 5 says, lean not on your own understanding, and, to trust in him. James 1, 2 says, count it all joy, my brothers, when you face trials of different sorts, for they produce in you a righteousness. Hebrews 12:11 says, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. And so, and then last, 1 Peter 4:10 says, each of you should use whatever gift you've received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. So what most people, when they read that, they think, okay, each of you should use whatever gift. They think it's a singing voice or flexibility or strength or whatever. I actually believe it's whatever God has rescued you from. And I believe that whatever you've progressed through, overcome, survived, whatever, this is like the whole, your pain is your purpose, the mess in the message, or your mess is your message kind of thing, and to help the person you used to be. And so, so to me, there is no failure because God allowed that situation to help you because he loves you so much. And he loves you so much, he doesn't want you to remain the same. So for me, I had some part when I came to Christ, some parts of my life became awesome. My marriage, got better, although there were bumps along the road that served us, and it just got us closer and closer and closer and closer together. Um, there were different challenges, and I remember in prayer, because there were certain parts of my business that hadn't bounced back to where they used to be, and I'm in prayer. I'm like, God, man, I feel like I'm doing everything you want me to do here. I'm obedient. You got me doing all kinds of uncomfortable stuff. I brought my mom to Christ, my dad to Christ. I'm discipling my stepmom who beat me as a kid. I brought my ex-wife to Christ. Like, I feel like I'm doing a lot of stuff, man. And I got in prayer. I had to keep breaking you so you would keep searching to find the need to love yourself. And I'm like, oh, geez, holy cow. And I didn't actually understand what that meant until about 2 weeks later. And I realized that my identity, my whole life, was what have I done? What am I doing? What have I accomplished? And no matter the answers, it wasn't good enough. And that's where I got to walk in a new creation. And so my new creation, my actual identity is I'm a bold, loving, authentic man of God. That's who I am. I may happen to do things. I may happen to have things. That's my identity. And so when you recognize that all situations were allowed by our Heavenly Father, even spiritual attacks. I've had massive spiritual warfare. I've had physical manifestations and pain. I've had in my kids. I mean, it's been pretty massive. Even that sort of thing, God allowed. Why? To equip me. Because everything that he allows, he's equipping, anointing, and calling you to go and serve others with, to use that gift that you survived, that you either currently have or are going through. You're to go and give hope to others. And so I know that my purpose here is to bring hope to others, bring more glory to God, and expand the kingdom. And so every single day, one of my primary activities is talking to people about God and bringing people to Christ. I don't recall the last day I had where I didn't bring someone to Christ. And so, yes, I want to make money. Yes, I want to have great resources. I want to be able to be generous. I want to do all these different things. And so when you step in that all failure has been allowed, it's not really failure, right? And we're not to be discouraged, right? We're to see it for what it is. When Peter and some of the other apostles were, whipped at the Sanhedrin, they rejoiced that they had been persecuted in the name of Christ. And so how do we operate like that? How do we, instead of looking at a failure or looking at this big obstacle, how do we say, okay, Lord, what am I learning from this? And what are we doing about this? And if you can step into that, because we're yoked with Christ, we co-labor with Christ. And so if we look at our situations that way, you'll see there are no failures. I was meant to go through foreclosure. I was meant to go through abuse. Going through abuse from the ages of 4 to 12, where I was thrown against a closet and stomped every single morning, where I was stabbed for not eating vomit out of my oatmeal, when I just went through numerous, I could share all kinds of stuff, right? I was meant to go through that, not because I deserved it, not because I'm terrible or something like that, but God knew that it would equip me to go and speak to kids in foster care, to go and speak to people of trauma, of abuse. And so how could I possibly be mad at going through something that created my purpose? And so I wouldn't trade it for the world. When I walk up to a group of troubled teenagers, they usually see me and they're like, "Oh, who's this white boy?" Like I see their eyes, I know what they're saying, right? And but 2 stories in, they're like, "Oh, okay. Oh, he gets it. Oh, he had to testify at a murder trial. Got it. Oh, okay. He's got he's been through some stuff." See, I wouldn't trade that because I love connecting with them. I love relating with them, and I love painting hope. Here's hope. I used to be a hoodlum. I used to be a drug dealer. I used to be not the nicest of guys. And now I've been able to help a few people and make a buck or two and know my position with my Heavenly Father, which is the most important.
I say it all the time is that the story of your struggle may someday be the blueprint for someone else's survival. And that may be literal, that may be a little more figurative. Maybe it's a business struggle, but there's, like I said, there's so much information to be learned uh, from pain, from failure, and you don't learn anything from success. And if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. So that was like I said when I first started speaking is that I was still ingrained with the EOD, explosive ordnance disposal model, which is initial success or total failure, which puts a pretty fine point on our job as you know bomb doctors. But uh, I was looking at it the wrong way. There's another saying in the military that says sweat in training so you don't bleed in battle. And it didn't mean that we'd never fail. It's that we try and try and try until we get it right so that when we're tested, we get it, we succeed. So go ahead.
I said, amen. I agree.
One more time.
I said, amen. I agree.
I tell you what, that was the difficulty I was having on the stage in the beginning was that, no, I was thinking nobody wants to hear me bitch and moan about what hurts, uh, about how tough it is. I'm up here because I figured something out and they want to hear about my success. But you gotta, it's like giving the punchline without the rest of the beginning of the joke. you know, you got to let them in on the secret. So uh, you've been on quite a few stages, and you've shared the stage with quite a few big names: Cardone, Magic Johnson, the 10x stage, Kiyosaki. By the way, are you back into real estate or?
My wife is a luxury realtor in Naples, Florida, and so I mean she's moved tens of millions of dollars in real estate. Um, we've flipped a lot of real estate. I wouldn't say I'm back into it necessarily. I tend to do different investments and things, but I'm always looking. I'm always looking to what makes sense out there, and so I wouldn't say I'm like in it because I don't spend a lot of time each day about real estate, but we're always open to it, and we've moved some properties over the years.
It took me 12 years to be brave enough to get back into real estate. But my wife and I are now doing real estate in multiple states now and really love it. But uh, speaking of the sharing the stage, have you learned from these other speakers, these other educators? What have you gleaned from say Cardone? Because I know he's very brash, he's very outspoken, maybe a little scary. What
Yeah,
have you learned from these people?
yeah. I back in I think 2019, I hired Grant Cardone, gave him $100,000 for 6 hours of his time, and in the first hour, our very first meeting, he gave me a different way of looking at my annual events, and that 1 hour made me an additional $1 million that year, and almost every year since. And he just really drilled into me that you got to go bigger. You just got to go bigger. And, it's not like I hadn't heard that kind of thing, but he put such powerful perspective on it and really pinpointed where I was struggling. And it was amazing. I'm not brash on social media. I'm not, I don't model his, methods, but his mind around always playing big is very powerful. And so he was very helpful to me.
Hmm. I'm curious about what it was he taught you about your events. Was it that it wasn't the ticket sales to the event?
So he really didn't give me, um, not that he really needed to. He didn't give me like, okay, here's a play by play, here's a blueprint, or here's a strategy or tactic or whatever. When I went to him, I had my biggest event was I had 800 people in the room, and I just I went into this mindset of, you know what, I need to have smaller events where it's more intimate and I work closer with them, and just make it more private, sell them out real fast. And so when I got to him, I told him, I said, hey, I have this event. There's 250 people coming. I've sold it out, and next year I'm thinking that maybe I go bigger. And he says to me, cancel the event. And I'm like, well, I've already sold it, and I've got the hotel in place. I've already booked the hotel. He goes, I heard you. Cancel it. And I'm like, okay. And so I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it. And so I cancel it. I think I pay a $10,000 fee or something like that. And so we move it to a few months later, and we sell 2,200 tickets. And so it just, he just really helped me see that, you going smaller isn't serving, and you go bigger. And so it really wasn't, it was a mindset thing. And most people need a mindset tweak. And, they don't think they do. They think they need what to do. They think they need, well, what scripts or strategies or tactics or email list building methods or hashtags or whatever. They think it's all that. And it's rarely that. It's usually, are you sabotaging your success? What is your mindset around growth? And that's what most people actually need. And on top of that, most people's business problem is a personal problem. It's someone they actually need to forgive, like me with my dad, or it's a conversation they need to have with their spouse. Usually there's a personal problem that's actually slowing your business, but it's very hard to see unless you have someone to help you navigate that.
If anybody knows about going big. Uh, so, where do you take it from here? What's on the horizon for you? What are you excited about?
Yeah, I mean, just every day I pray on, what are we doing today, Lord, and who are we bringing to you. So I know that everything I've gone through equipped me to help other people to go through the same kind of journey, and so helping high end entrepreneurs that Tony Robbins, he said, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And so helping high-end entrepreneurs that thought money was the answer to their significance problems or worth problems, and help them realize what is the answer. And that the answer is going to God, is going, we have a hardwired desire to have a connection with God, and he wants that. And so, for me, that looks like, I just wrote a book, last month called The Faith Driven Network Marketer. Here at the end of October, we have our Faith Over Fear live event. And so just putting assets into the marketplace to help people realize the difference between God and money, source and resource, help them find their meaning, purpose, and fulfillment through, prayer and getting into the word and understanding. And so that's my life mission. That's what I'll be doing, regardless of when we talk again.
I've been focusing on speaking because, of course, I'm interested in what you've got to say on the speaking thing. And there was, I think you mentioned something about speakers that are hung up on the speaker's fee. Tell me more about that. Go a little deeper on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very grateful. My standard keynote fee is 35,000, and I've had quite a few people and companies pay that. However, I mean, if it's still to this day, if it's the right scenario, I may not get a speaker fee, and I'd be okay with that. If I'm able to offer something else, or if it's a large enough audience or a targeted enough audience. And so, it's something that when you're only focused on speaker fee, and so don't hear this the wrong way, right? I'm not saying, hey, always speak for free. I'm not saying that. Some companies won't actually respect you if you will speak for free, and so it's a weird dynamic there of when you pick, and I would suggest that get into prayer. So there are things that I've prayed about that I got go speak for free, and so I'll do it. I don't I'm his son, and if my dad asks me to go do something, I go do it. And if he asks me not to charge, I don't charge. And so I just think there should be some distinction there. I can absolutely pinpoint multiple events that I didn't get paid to speak on, but over the years have made me millions of dollars. I can pinpoint them. I know, someone I respect and appreciate, Eric Worre. He's had me on his stage a few times, and I mean, I've gotten clients from that. I know for certain me being on his stage has made me millions of dollars, and he never paid me. And he didn't. I didn't get a speaker fee. I didn't ask for a speaker fee, and so you want to have some discernment. If you're being asked to speak at an event and it's your perfect audience and they don't have a budget or a policy for paying speakers, you go and you do it, and you do a good job, right? Steve Martin said, "Be so good they can't ignore you," and so I think a lot of people miss out when they're a one trick pony of I got to get a speaker fee.
Two quick follow-ups on that. One is, what about say nonprofits with a tight budget? And is it I know you can, for conventions, conferences, seminars, that kind of thing, you can maybe monetize with your books at the door or something else. But for nonprofits, not really selling. Is are you just going to hope that you get follow-on leads for speaking, or is that part of, say,
So I've never charged a nonprofit a speaker fee. I think the discernment there is, should I do it? So I would pray on should I do it. But as far as charging a fee, I don't feel that's what I'm supposed to do, to charge a fee. Now, what's interesting about that is I have had at least one time that I can remember where a nonprofit reached out to me and said, "Hey, what's your speaker fee?" And when I learned that they helped with kids in foster care, I said, "Oh, well, for you guys, I wouldn't charge anything." And they actually didn't hire me because I didn't charge a fee. And so that's interesting, right? I'm trying to keep more of your money focused on what you're doing. But some people, if you don't charge a fee, they they don't respect you. And so I don't feel like I missed out on that. I just feel like that's a not smartly ran organization, and that's okay. God didn't want me to speak there. And so the discernment is, should I speak for this company? Should I speak for this nonprofit? And so I would just, get into prayer. And, sometimes I don't understand why I get a yes or a no, but, I get a yes or no, and that's what I do.
the other one was about pace, or minding your time and knowing your role. I mean, there are some rules to speaking that I've definitely broken in the past about, uh, you know, even if you're the keynote, you're the main, there's other things going on. Uh, Being able to stay on point and on time. Uh, I know you've experienced some challenges with not with changing time allowance.
Sure. Yeah, probably my most extreme example is I had a company, paid my full speaker fee, and I was supposed to do 90 minutes on Friday. And, Friday came and gone, couldn't do it. They said, well, you know what? We can't give you 90 minutes. It's going to be a little bit less. I'm like, okay, okay. And so here we are on Saturday, and, most of Saturday is done. And they're like, hey, we're really tight on time. And I just said, listen, you hired me, put me on stage, and put whatever you want on the clock. Okay. And so I get up there and it says 17 minutes. And so, okie doke. And, I do my 17 minutes because it is extremely important. One of the most common reasons a speaker isn't asked back is they go over their time. I had a speaker last year at our Faith Over Fear event that I loved. I thought they were awesome. Went over their time by a large amount, won't have them back. That's just how it goes. You can be awesome, just amazing, bring down the house speaker. You go over your time, you're not respecting me, and you're not respecting the agenda. I can't have you back. You don't play by the culture. So when the 17 minutes was up, I'm like, okay, that's my time, thank you. And the audience was like, what? Like they were groaning, they were mad, they were looking around, and I will tell you, I didn't take it well at first because I wanted to give more. They pay me ridiculous, right? They pay me, like $2,000 a minute. Like that is crazy. And so, as I'm walking off, I could just feel that I was just not happy with that because I wanted to give more. I wanted to serve. I wanted to pour more value. But I respect that clock. And so it was a great lesson for me because at the end of the day, after contemplating, it's like, it's their money. They hired me and they give me 17 minutes, then I'm going to rock that 17 minutes. I don't need to feel bad about this. So it was a good growth lesson for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was invited by a friend who's got a foundation, and he said he wanted to give me an award. And as event organizer, I don't think anybody told me how long I'd have, but I was asked to tell a little bit about my story and my involvement in this organization. And just before getting up on stage, they said, I asked, finally, I said, how much time have I got? They said, go ahead and take 2 minutes. I can save you a minute 57, and thank you. But
Yeah.
Definitely
You
have to
you gotta take the shot, right? So if you're in that situation, you're not going to be able to tell your full story, and so you just raise curiosity, so people are just begging to hear more, and we'll reach out to you and connect with you. But you take your shot. If you're in that situation.
The way I look at that with the time allowance is that I've got a whole vault file of stories, lessons, stories, mindset, all of that I can piece together into the speaking event. If my time gets truncated, I just pull a couple of those stories out and squish the rest together, and it's just about connecting it into that a workable make it so it flows. But every one of those, it's all anecdotal, and every one of them has a lesson. When you're talking about content creation, and I know, of course, I think it was speaking of Cardone, he says where attention goes, money flows, and of course, being a marketer, you gotta stay stuff. So when it comes to, especially online social media, all of that, you got to put out a lot of content. You've got a lot of people are like, well, what do I say? You've got a method for that too, or multiple methods, I'm sure. But can you tell me where you get your inspiration, your material?
Yeah, when I'm teaching this, one of the simplest concepts is ILT: invest, learn, teach. And so that's invest your time, possibly money, to learn something, and you teach it. And so, for example, I do 6 days a week. I call them walk-in faith videos, and it's where I just talk about being a Christian entrepreneur coach and how I help people grow their team skills and profits, and I'll use biblical, scripture to back up different business concepts or different, things that are going on, right? And so ILT is, most people when they read a book, they just read the book, and even if it was a great book, they don't share anything from it. And so I just don't read books without doing videos from those books, unless, the book just sucked. And I'm not going to bash a book, like we don't need that. But if I read a book, maybe I get 10 ideas from it. Those become 10 videos. I'm going to create those. I don't attend an event without creating videos from what I learned at that event. And so I just think people are, they're consuming, but they sure would impact a whole lot more if they invest, learned, and taught. If they consumed, took their notes, either went live with them or created a bunch of short videos or whatever. So like what I'll do is, let's say I go and, even if I'm watching my own speakers at Faith Over Fear, I'll take notes and I'll do a live and I'll share all my notes, but I'll also take every major point, and that's a reel. And so, in a convention, I'll probably have 30 points. So I'll do one live, 30 reels. And so, that's just very, very simple. Now, that's not even talking about just going about your every day and what you learn throughout the day, or, what you've overcome, or any of that kind of stuff. That's just what you study, just what you study and learn and get exposed to.
Yeah, I mean, people. I know people get hung up on suggesting other people's books or using other people's material that's not original. But yeah, that there's two sides to that, right? A lot of people they appreciate the recommendation. Maybe they haven't heard that before, and
Yeah, and you always edify. I always edify. And I remember, I've had this happen so many times where I edified someone's book and then that person reached out to me and thanked me. And one of the cool ones was Stephen Pressfield. So his book, The War of Art, is just awesome. I mean, it's just a great book, short book, like, it's great, right? And so when I read that, I'm like, holy cow, this is amazing. So I did a video about it. And Steven's agent reached out to me and he said, hey, I just want you to know, Steven really liked your video. Like, great job. And he said, can we send you some books? I'm like, well, I can buy my own books, but can I interview him? And they're like, well, let me talk to him. And so I got to interview him. So I interviewed Stephen Pressfield, and it was so intriguing and so cool. And that's because I edified his book. And so I'm just, I just believe in abundance. I don't think me talking about someone else's book is going to harm my book sales. I think there's a better chance that person I'm edifying creates a connection and wants to do something with me. Like I think that's a much smarter way to work.
And of course, people, I didn't even consider that, but that's awesome. But I was considering, the audience and how they appreciate when you share resources, right? Share education. You're not hoarding it for yourself. What's that get you? But on the flip side, I know if you don't, cite the reference, right? If basically you're just plagiarizing, and people who have read the material. People have read the material. They're like, I know where you got that. That's not new.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. You don't need to plagiarize like that. I just think it's so much more powerful. I remember I had a client, this was quite a few years ago, and he had never made a dime online, and he joined my mastermind, and I walked him through, and he hit $1 million his first year, which is very uncommon. I mean, most clients aren't going to do that, right? He's very talented. And he went on a podcast and he shared all kinds of stuff that I had taught him, didn't edify me. And I had people reach out to me, they're like, bro, don't you, like, this guy's saying a lot of things you say, like, did you coach him or something? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And they're like, well, he ain't edifying you. And I'm like, oh, well, whatever, no big deal. And so what's interesting is I actually never listened to the podcast because I just don't care. I don't care if someone edifies me or not. But a lot of people like attacked him for doing that. And like, he got backlash, not from me, he got backlash from some of my crowd. And so that's what can happen. Now, if he would have edified, I mean, I would have shared it, and I'm sure my audience would have shared it. Like, it would have reached more people. And so, edification is very smart. I mean, it's not just, I think, moral, but I think it's smart.
At the very least, I mean that's just taking an easy way out. I was thinking at the very least, you reference the book, and you can put the affiliate link in your show notes or whatever. You get a few pennies for some sales, but yeah, it's a really good way. And I like doing that myself. I'll take some of my favorite books, and if I thought the lesson in a lot of lessons in these books, it's great. It's a consolidation of somebody's life, work, an expert, into a few hours of listening or reading or whatever. And if you take one of those lessons and you share it, and even better, tie it into some of your own personal experiences, which I love to do. Like, hey, here's something, and here's why I loved it, because it parallels something, what I experienced, and here's how it could help you. Then people appreciate it's a way to connect. People appreciate sharing that resource. And that's just, of course, it's that great way to come up with content that isn't completely original, but it's really good info. Well, I tell you what, I really love this conversation. I really appreciate all that you're doing. Um, and before I let you go, I want to transition into the final segment of the show called the Countdown to Impact. And 3, 2, 1 things that had an impact on your life. 3 books, 2 quotes, and 1 person.
Okay. Um, 3 books. I mean, I could do all 3 different books of the within the Bible, but I won't cheat, I guess, and I'll just say the Bible. Right? That's number one. That's what's helped me with way more wisdom than any other book. So I would say the Bible. I would say.
Previously mentioned on the show doesn't count. No, I'm just kidding.
I would say, interestingly enough, what comes to mind is a book by Dr. John Sarno, and it's called Healing Back Pain. And the reason that book has helped me multiple times in my life is it made me aware that your emotions, resentment, and brain can create pain in your body. And I've had different points of pain in my body that I thought were physical things, and they weren't. They were from past resentment, anger. I remember I had this excruciating pain in my elbows, both elbows, and I tried everything: cortisone shots. I tried all kinds of weird machines and exercises and stuff. I read chapter 4 of that book. I set it down. The pain's gone. And there's been 2 times in my life where I went back to that book, and it helped me with some kind of pain in my body. And so, that one is a really good one. And I mean, I really liked, we mentioned it before, but I liked War of Art. I mean, I thought that was such a good book, and just so good on the days where you don't want to show up and you're facing resistance. I just really like that book by Stephen Pressfield. Um, 2 quotes. One, I'm going to use a verse, which is a quote. 2 Corinthians 5:17, and that is, "You are a new creation. When you are with Christ, you're a new creation. The old has passed away." And that has helped guide me of when I'm in a situation that I don't know how to handle. I pray, and I pray to walk in a new creation. And so that means not responding the way I have in the past, not reacting the way the world would react, but walking in a new creation and co-laboring with Christ. And it's had very, very interesting things that have happened because of that. People that that I just didn't seem like was going to have a great relationship with, to people just absolutely want to be my best friend, and showing them the kindness of the Father in the best way that I have been led to do. Okay. Another quote. Clearly, I didn't read your sheet before I jumped on here. I don't read any questions on any podcast ever prior to hopping on them. I mentioned this one too, but I this jumps out at me. Steve Martin's quote: "Be so good they can't ignore you." And I think that's part of the calling of being a Christian is, you're to be the light of the world, the city on the hill that cannot be hidden. And so how do we shine our light brighter to bring more hope to others and bring more glory to God? And so be so good they can't ignore you is a good one. The one person that I would say has changed my life the most, if I'm not saying Christ, I'm going to say my wife. And, my wife, we started dating when I had lost everything. She was actually paying my utility bills. And so, here I was trying to figure life out, and she's, 11 years younger than me, paying my bills. And as we grew together, there are so many things that I've learned from her. And what was interesting with her is as we made more money, we actually had more arguments. It was very strange, but it's because she had observed her mom make a lot of money, lose it. And so she had an inner wound, a trigger that, when we started making more money, she actually got more stressed because she thought we were going to lose it, this subconscious part of her. And so, we moved into a season where I felt like she was always challenging me and disagreeing with me. And the truth is, whether she was doing it consciously or not, is she was preparing me for the world. And she, would challenge me to make me better. And that's what a good woman does. A good woman challenges you to make you better. Not that she disagrees with you, disrespects you, or whatever. And now in this latest, last 2 years, we both came to Christ on the same day in November of 2022. And prior to that, we were very new age. And so we, changed very quickly, and I changed faster than almost anyone. My first week with Christ, I had a Hebrew and Aramaic mentor, and that's just the way God wired me, to be all in. And her, not so much. And so, in the beginning, we, had our challenges of, one going this way, one going the other way. And just to see as she's matured with Christ and as we've grown closer together, it's just been amazing. We got to grow really close together when we were over in Israel when war broke out. And so we had been there for a Holy Land tour, and 4 days in, it was October 7th. And so, we've God has allowed different situations in our life for us to grow. And so I've just learned, the most from her. She's helped me the most, grown me the most, made me appreciate my life the most, saw things in me that I didn't see. So I would say my wife.
That's great. I love that. I'm also going to have to get the affiliate code for Bible. But I love that. There really is no problem with the proper application of Christ, or C4 can't solve. No. But thank you so much one more time, Ray, for coming on and sharing some of your experience, expertise. If someone wants to connect with you, hire you for speaking, coaching, get your new book, where can they connect?
Yeah, they can check out rayhigdon.com/speaking if they're looking for speaking scenarios. Or you can just reach out to me. I'm at Ray Higdon on most social media accounts, so they can feel free to reach out to me, and me or my team will get back to them, and would love to connect.
Well, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And we'll get all that into the show notes.
Sounds good,
All
man.
right.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.